In today's video, we're doing a tutorial for the Hotone Ampero multi-effects processor pedal. I've already done a full review of this, going through all the sound samples. If you missed that, I'll link it up in the cards. This will be a hands-on approach to how to get the most out of this unit. A massive thank you to Hotone for sending this out for this particular video. Let's get into it. Including the box, we get everything we need to get going. Included, we get a power connector and the cable appropriate to your country. Just plug this in and you're good to go. We also get a provided USB cable. This will allow us to update the firmware and also connect it to our computer. Included, we also get a couple of these dual style buttons. These are designed to go on top of the existing buttons in case you want to operate this with your hand. It's just a bit more comfortable. Let's take a look at the layout of the pedal. So from right to left, we plug in our power supply here. We also have a MIDI in case you want to use this with a MIDI device. We also have a power switch on and off. We get the USB port for the USB cable I showed you before. We get two unbalanced outputs. Now these are best suited if you're going into a guitar amplifier, and they can also be used in an interface that doesn't support XLRs, but these are unbalanced. Included, we get an auxiliary in and phone. So phones is for your headphones. Auxiliary in is for any device that supports a 3.5mm output jack. So an output jack from a device into this so you can play music back through it and jam along accordingly. We also get a ground lift here as well. Now what this will do is it will help eliminate hum if you've got some sort of earthing problem in the room that you're in. We also get two XLR outputs. Now these are great. These allow you to connect directly to a PA system or a sound card thanks to those XLR ports. Over here's our instrument input. Now this is great because we can also select line input by selecting this bottom one, acoustic guitar with a pickup in that position, and electric guitar or bass in the up position. If you're going to be running a second expression pedal or the Hotone Soul Press 2, you can plug it in over here. I'll show you that in this video. To get the most out of this and to control everything via a computer, you'll need some software called the Ampero editor. I'll leave links below so you can download it. This will work on Windows PC and also on a Mac. I'll be using it with my Mac. Now once the software's installed and you've got the unit hooked up to the computer, you'll be greeted with this screen right here where it shows you everything that you need to know about how this Ampero editor software works. Now once you know that the Ampero connects to the computer without any problems, it's well worth it just to upgrade the firmware. So I'll leave a link below so you can download the latest firmware for this particular unit. Now to upgrade the firmware, all you need to do is hold these three buttons down, the menu and the two buttons on the right, and then power the unit on. And you'll be greeted with this particular screen right here, which says firmware update / restore mode. Now, as you open the software on the Ampero editor, it will then ask you to find the exact file that you downloaded to update the firmware. You insert that file into the software, it updates it back into the unit. It takes roughly 5 minutes. Turn it off once it's done, turn it back on, and you'll be good to go. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to give you an overview of how this works. Now, if we take a look at the front panel here, there's a volume control on the left side. No volume. Turn it up a little bit more. So you want to set this so your audio interface isn't clipping. I could probably just give it a little bit more gain. And that's about right. So the volume out now to the sound card is at its optimum. We get banks and we get presets with this unit. So to scroll between presets, there's 3 for every bank. I'm currently on 3, which is 3 presets within bank 3. So if we want to change, all we have to do is push these buttons on the front. Now, that's how you go between each of the 3 presets. Now, if we want to scroll down an entire bank, and I'll show you that on the computer, you can do that via, well, at least with the hardware keys, you can do it this way. Hit these 2. It will go back up to bank 2, so you'll scroll up through the presets. And if you want to go down, use these 2. And as you can see, it goes to P03, P04, and that takes us to the next bank after that, the 3. One one of the things I always liked about the Ampero were these dials on the front that allow you to adjust things on the fly. So if we want more or less gain, we can do it really easily. Now say that delay is a little bit too much because there is a lot on there. We can turn that down as well. Now ahead of time, I also added a wah pedal. Being that this is on the desk, it's going to make it a little bit harder for me to use the wah, but to activate the wah pedal, you push down on the toe, like any wah pedal, and then it's on. To turn it off, you use the toe down again, you push down, and it turns the wah off. Now if you want to use the tuner, it's nice and simple. Simply hold this button down and the tuner will light up, and it also mutes your signal, which is great as well, so you can tune up in silence without annoying everybody. Now you might have noticed on the desk here I have an expression pedal. I've got this hooked up as a volume pedal, so no volume. So there's a couple of different ways you can make your own presets. You can customize one that's already there that you like the sound of, or you can start from scratch. So I'm going to use this slick lead one as my starting tone, but we're going to change it up to become more like the sound that I like. So in terms of the amplifiers here, we get a whole lot of different ones to choose from. We can also do this from the pedal itself, but it's far easier with the software here. We can scroll up from Dizzle and change it to a Marshall possibly. Let's take a listen to this one. I think that sounds pretty good. Let's take a listen. Now we've got to do something about that delay. It's just a little bit on the obsessive side. So let's click over to the delay and turn down the mix. It's just far too prominent. Too many feedback notes as well. Let's take a listen. I like about just over 3 repeats. Yeah, that should be about right. Now the time on the delay allows you to set how long it takes before it repeats back, but I like where that's set. I think it sounds pretty good. I love the fact you can change the speaker cabinets. Now these will have just as big of an impact on the sound as changing the amplifier in some way. So let's give this a shot. It's set to UK Black 4x12. So there's plenty of these to choose from. I'm going to leave it on UK Green 4x12. Greenbacks, once you get more than one of them, they sound pretty great. Now, as you can see on the right over here, you can also change the position of the microphone. You can also change the microphone type. Let's just quickly play through a few of these now. Kind of like the condenser mic sound a little bit better. That's a huge sound, and that will do nicely. If you want more attitude and attack, you can of course use something like a 57. It's going to give you a bit more of a mid-frequency sound. It also has a little bit more sizzle on the top end. Now, if you play with a lot of gain, you want a noise gate which will allow sort of the buzz to stop, especially if you're playing single coils. This is a really great thing. Now, I'm playing humbuckers. There's a little bit of noise still getting through, so we can set the threshold over here. If I bring it down, you can definitely hear the gain and the buzz coming through the recording. As I bring it up by muting my strings, around 19 it's completely gone, but I still have sound. So that gate seems to be working pretty well. If I just want to make sure there's nothing coming through, you can set it up a little bit higher, somewhere around 22 should be more than enough, 22, 23. Now there's also a smart gate and a custom gate. You can play around with this to suit your guitar type, but fast gate seems to work pretty well. Up next, I'm going to show you the EQ. So there's two different types of EQ with this particular pedal. There's a master one, which isn't this one, and there's the EQ that you put in your signal chain. So there's about 6 different ones you can choose from here. There's VEQ, there's graphic EQ, which is like a 10-band one. There's a parametric EQ, and plenty of others. If you play bass, there's a bass EQ there as well. We're going to try out the guitar EQ1. So I'm just going to play the same thing a few times and adjust the EQ by adding more or less brightness, and also, or treble I should say, and then also when it comes to the low end. Let's give this a shot. I've just saved that lead tone that you've just heard, and I'm over to my Telecaster now. We're going to dial in a really nice clean tone. I've just been playing around with this off camera, and I think this sounds pretty good. So on the amp position, I've got it set to Black Twin. On the cab, I've got it set to the 2x12 for the Twin as well. So this is how that sounds. I've got the Sennheiser 609 microphone. I think that's a 906 normally, at least I got a 906 back there. So that's that one, and we can position the mic wherever we like in this space here. All right, now we can go over to the reverb type and change it to any number of these. I'm going to leave it on the spring. I think this is very reminiscent of a Fender Twin. It's got a nice long trail and it sounds pretty cool. We can of course change up the mix on here as well. Let's bring it up a little bit. All right, let's go over to effect spot number 1. Now you can add tube screamers and all kinds of stuff to this, which is great. And there's plenty to choose from. So if we go down to Green Drive, we can literally just add it like a tube screamer sound. Now you can also run this in one of two ways. We can just store that as a clean sound and then redo it, or move it over to the next position and store it with the drive pedal on. That's a really great way of running it. Or you can set up the Ampero so as you hit a button it turns the drive on and off. So you have that ability as well, but I really like this kind of sound. It's my bluesy sort of thing. All right, there's plenty of other ones down here as well. Dr. Blues. Let's try this one. Feels great under the fingers as well, very reminiscent of an amp being in the room. I'm listening through studio monitors here, and it feels good to play. So let's say for argument's sake, I'm happy with that and I want to save it. Again, we can go back to the edit button on the actual unit and click save. Call it whatever we want. I'm going to get rid of this name. We can also do this on the computer as well, just by right-clicking and then renaming the file, but I'm going to do it this way. We'll call this one Blues. Blues. What did I call the last one? Lead. That's good. So the beauty of this is now I can switch between both of the saved presets at the touch of a button. Here we go. This is the blues one. Let's take a look at the built-in drum machine. So just by hitting the drum option on screen here, it'll bring up the drum option screen, or in the software, it's at the top here, and it looks a lot different on screen here, but you've got all these different beats you can choose from funk to jazz to blues to Latin electronic, world, and just about everything. So I'm just gonna go on the first one here. We'll hit play. So that's 120 beats per minute. Let's just make it a little faster, 130. Now my guitar's kind of overwhelming the drums in terms of volume, so you can turn up the volume of the drums. Let's turn it to 32. Let's try this. So that's really good practice, and if you want to just demo up a track, you've got some drums at your disposal. And lastly, I want to show you some of the global configurations, because this can work in very different ways, and I'm going to show you that right now. I'm also just going to do this on the software because it's a lot easier to show you exactly what's happening. But just know, if you go to the global tab on the top of the unit here, all the same options are under here. So to access these settings, click on the settings option. Now, one of the things you'll want to change, depending on how you use this, is this option here. It's under Footswitch Settings. Now, see how Footswitch 1 goes to patch 1, Footswitch 2 goes to patch 2, and so forth on patch 3? What if we wanted just to set up one tone where we could then turn effects on and off? You would set this to, go down to Effects 1 on and off. This allows you to turn on whatever you set up in effects number 1 here on and off. So if you set up a clean sound and then you add a distortion pedal or whatever it is here, as you now click this button on the unit, it will turn the scream mood, or whatever that one's called, on and off like this, right? So that's really cool. That allows you to get a clean tone and then a clean tone with a pedal. And you can do that for the other settings as well. Now, the reason why you might want to run it in this particular mode is, say you're a big fan of a Fender Twin or whatever the amp is, for example, and you don't want anything else other than a tube screamer on that sound or off. You've got one bank that you can use with one preset. You can turn that effect on and off. It's nice and simple. So if we go over to patch 2, for example, we can do the same thing here. We can turn on effects 2 on and off, or whatever we choose to, delay on and off, or reverb on and off. Again, this will give us the ability now to turn the reverb that we have as a preset on and off in the settings here. If I get rid of that, you'll be able to see it. So if you take a look at the delay settings, that analog echo is now being turned on and off and operated via the unit. This is really powerful in this regard. This is the way that I would use it if you're playing live, which brings me to this next thing. If you're going to be using this into an amplifier and your amplifier has a speaker, you need to turn off the cab simulation because your amplifier has a speaker. That will give you the best sound possible. If you're going to be going out into a desk or in some sort of audio interface without an amplifier, have the cab emulation on, and don't be too scared to fiddle around with the microphone placement and microphone type, as well as all the other settings. You'll get lots of different sounds out of this really easily. Earlier I mentioned there's two different types of EQ. The first one we already looked at, which was the one in our signal chain. The second one is via this global EQ on screen here. This allows us to set up a post EQ, which will then go out into whatever we're sending the signal to. So I'm using XLR outs into my sound card. If I needed more high end, I can add it or less, or whatever the case may be. This is something very useful if you're playing into a PA system, for example, where the tweeter might be blown and you need more tops. You can crank up the high gain. So that's very functional there. We can turn that on and off by using the switch on the right. Now, for argument's sake, if you stuff up this completely and you need to factory reset it, you can go into global here and click on factory reset. It will warn you that all data will be lost. Are you sure you wish to continue? Yes, and then it will reset, but I'm not going to do that right now. So I'm just going to hit no. Up next, I want to show you how I got the expression pedal to work as a wah pedal. Now, if we go into the software here, I have effects number 2 set to the Crybaby Wah. There'll also be a calibration process as well. You can follow that on screen. It's pretty simple. But if we go back to the unit here and go to Control Expression, we can go down to Expression 1 settings, which is this one, Expression Pedal 1. 2 is this one over here. And then we can go to Target. I've got it set to effects number 2. And that will be on screen on this side over here. Hopefully you can see that okay. So that will enable and disable the wah that we placed in effects position number 2. Now, if we take a look on screen, as I toe down here, it's going to turn on, and then I've got the wah pedal active. You can see the range on screen moving. Then if I toe down again hard, it's going to turn it off. So it acts like a real wah pedal. Thanks for watching, folks. My name's Shane. While this is a very easy device to get going, there are some intricacies that I hope this has helped you with, whether that's assigning a button to an effect on and off, or setting up some of the global parameters. I hope this has given you an insight into how this works. If you'd like to find out more about this particular unit, links will be below. Thanks again. Catch you soon. See ya.